nerves of the next election.
We are live on Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 185. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Today we got Tony and Don and Luff and Ed and Big Dan and, oh yeah, Paul and John and Una and Mike and John and and Dennis and John and Jeremy and John and Anders and John, and I think I saw Mr. Kaya here earlier. Yep, there he is. David's on. And, oh, Mr. Walker's on. Excellent. The gang is all here. Let us talk about all kinds of slot cars of any kind. Anything related to slot cars is fair game. As per usual, we start with show and tell. So if you have any event you want to show off, or I guess we could talk about that in Club Corner if you want to, but projects, new cars, toys, whatever. Raise your virtual hand.
I can't find my virtual hand.
You want to go first, Brian, so I don't forget about it? Brian, I'll let you go first if you want. You don't even have to raise your virtual hand.
I think he prefers to go by Paul.
Sorry, Paul. Paul, Mr. Longhurst, do you want to go first?
Yes, please.
Go for it.
Right. Well, some time ago, back in the 60s, my dad raced this car. It's an Aurora K&B GT40. And it was lovely when he raced it. And in the 70s, I raced it and smashed it to pieces. And I've had a new front end molded, which is resin, a new back end molded. I don't know if you can see that, which is also resin. But the interior, I chopped all the interior away to get a new, bigger motor in. So I've had to fill that hole in the middle. But Chris Walker found and located me an original chassis and everything else, and he done an absolutely fantastic job on rebuilding it, redoing it, and I actually found some proper screws tonight to put the body back on the chassis back onto the body part, and that is it so far. But as I was saying earlier, the hardest bit to get at the moment is that front bit should be blue, and it's called an antimatter blue, whereas the body was Wimbledon white, and that is why it's still sitting in primer, because I can't get hold of the paint at the moment. But that is it so far. I did promise Chris I would show him it on the, and I've been sending him emails, but I thought I'll come on tonight and show him how it's got on so far. And that's it.
So basically you're on a
well,
quest
Paul?
Sorry?
Does it run well?
Oh, mate, it is sweet as a nut. It is really beautiful. It runs. I can't fault it. You've done an absolute fantastic job on that.
Oh, good. Glad you're happy.
I can't thank you enough. I really can't. That is.
No problem.
I showed my dad pictures of it on the weekend, and he went, "Is that the same car?" I went, "Yes, it is the same car."
Full restoration.
So, yeah, he is absolutely over the moon with the restoration so far on it. And it actually sits in actually quite nice.
Lovely.
And now you're on a quest to find the antimatter blue.
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. But
I looked up that antimatter blue, Paul, and all the references I can find have it as a bit of metallic in it, which is not correct.
no, because they flattened it. It was that's why it was that matte blue on the front.
And it was not metallic either.
No.
So Tamiya makes a dark, I think I sent you the TS number.
I'll have a look. But
yeah, and they make a navy blue, which you could always. It's pretty glossy, but you could always hit it with a quick coat of semi-gloss or flat to dull it down a bit. And then as far as the white, Tamiya makes a racing white, which is not a refrigerator white. It's just a tiny bit creamier, which is more appropriate for, the cars in the early mid-60s.
Well, the white is Wimbledon white, and I've got that. I've actually got the white for it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could send me that Tamiya link again, I'll
The
I'll go
Tamiya
to
dark blue is TS55.
That's the one.
TS55.
Yeah.
I'm in an office here and I can't find no paper. Right.
I've used that. I've used TS55 on a couple of vintage GT40s, and it's only a blind man's going to know the difference. But the antimatter blue that I've found has a metallic in it, which is not correct for that car.
That
Okay.
is so dark. I think that was black.
Once you put the TS55 on, you could always give it a coating of a matte clear as well.
Yeah.
That's what Chris said.
I've got all the decals for it, so that's all done. It's funny because I've got a friend in Texas, Joe Selesky, and he's sending me over a Cox GT40, and that is number 9. So I've got number 9, 10, and 11. So that is the team cars, but all different makes.
Yeah,
Nice.
So
And
cool.
the Cox will run on. Sadly, that Cox will run rings around the K&B or Aurora. Yeah.
I don't care. I'm just glad that this is running.
What's the third
Yeah.
one? Is the third one a monogram?
Yes, it is a monogram. How did you
Okay,
guess that one? Yeah, it is.
If you need any help with those, Paul, I'll be happy to help out. I've got lots of bits, and if you're not in a rush and want to send it over, I'll be happy to recondition them for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, the monogram. I noticed the glass on the cockpit's got a crack in it, and I don't know what I've done. I must have took the headlights covers lenses out and put them away somewhere, and it's like everything else. I can't find it, but I did find the original screws for this, as you can see.
So the monogram one, which one have you got? Which chassis? Is it the Series 2 chassis, or is it one of the set cars?
It's. Give me 5 minutes. I'll go and get the car. Right, I'll be back in a minute. Let me just mute this.
All right. Well, he's going to get that. Dennis, do you want to get started on yours?
Sure. Let me just change over the cameras. This has started, guys. This has started. Here are my first 2 brushless motors.
Here we go. Teeny weeny.
Teeny weeny. I mean, you have no idea how teeny weeny until you put a regular S-can next to them.
Yeah.
Right. And they're absolutely teeny weeny. These particular ones come from a guy called Casey Racing in Michigan. And they are ready to go for slot cars because they have an extended shaft so that you could put the pinion on this end, because of course it's the outside of the motor that rotates. He has little brackets that you could bolt the motor into and then solder the whole thing into a steel chassis. So that's nice. And then from the same guy, I got the what's his name too? Hold on a moment. The control board is still in its anti-static packet here. Just need to open it up. And of course, every time I try to do that, my fingers won't work. So there's the board. This particular one came from Westrock, which is the board that comes out of New Zealand. From what I've been reading, it's a good board. It's reliable. It's a little bigger than some of the other boards, but it has the advantage that it's single-sided. So there are no components on the back side of the board, which means that you have less problems with it mounting it in a metal chassis, and it's not as high. So anyway, these arrived the other day. I'm just waiting now for some connectors so that I can add connectors onto the pigtails of the motor and put a set of connectors onto come on, there you go, onto the 3 connectors on the board on the motor side so that I can move the board around. I'll probably use just a 2 connector slotted style connector on the guide side of the board, on the power side of the board, and then I'll be able to move the board around and move the motors around from one car to another. I also have a Mac, an SPM board coming from the UK, which is a little smaller, but a double-sided board. So that'll be another test that I'll be able to do. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. And yeah, they are tiny, these things.
Yeah.
One
What
is
rating did you get? Sorry.
one is a 4,500 kV. The other one is a 6,500 kV.
Holy jeez. What are you putting those in?
FlexiCast probably.
Okay. All right.
Certainly 124 scale stuff. I might actually put one at some point. I'll probably put one into a 132nd scale Eurosport car as well.
Yeah.
Just to try it out. Sorry. Thanks, Greg.
We've got a bunch of the 4000s running around in flexi cars, Dennis, and they're perfectly fine. Like they're plenty.
Yeah. Well, the USRA National Championships in 2024 is coming to the local raceway down here to Piranha Speedway, and there will be the 3 Eurosport classes, 132nd Euro, 124th Euro, and Formula One Euro. And so, because these motors will be legal, brushless motors are legal in those 3 classes. That's what I'm aiming at, because I just don't have the money. Well, not that I don't have it. I don't want to spend the money on refurbing or buying new Eurosport motors at $300 or $400 a piece for just one or two, for just one race. So I'd much rather run the chassis that I've got, because I've got plenty of those, with motors like this.
Yeah, the guys at the New Jersey recent New Jersey Worlds, Worlds, ran one motor for practice, qualifying, and in both classes.
Yeah.
So
I know
that's
this is the major attraction of brushless motors, is the fact that they don't go off.
Yeah, and they're fairly consistent as well, we found.
Mm-hmm. From one to the next.
What's the cost of the motor and the chip when you're all in on both of those?
So the motors, these ones are $16.50 each, and the board was $47, I think. So
just as a reference, Jeremy, when I said the guys at the Worlds were using these for both classes, practice and qualifying. If you were using, typical open motors, you'd probably need to do that. You'd probably need to take 7 or 8 motors with you, and that's probably in the region of about $4,000.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you're certainly these days, if you're trying to start out on Eurosport racing, your initial investment is going to be enormous if you go with the regular strap motor. Yeah. If you go with brushless, your initial investment is significantly lower. Although, I mean, NSR are talking about bringing out motors now that are specially made for slot cars, and they're talking €300 a motor. But those things they're hand wound and dynamically balanced and all sorts of things like that. Yeah. But then what they're doing there, which is not what I'm going to do, is they're creating brushless motors that replicate what their brush motors do, meaning that they rev to the heavens, so that they can gear them with 5-tooth pinions and 40-tooth gears. They gear them about 8-to-1, and they just let the things rev, because they feel, and I'm probably not going to argue with them, although I feel I could. They feel that revving them like that provides them with some gyroscopic precession, which becomes important to them. They feel it stabilizes the car in some form. I'm not particularly convinced about that, but that's what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, I think as well as the cost for entry for guys getting in or not getting in, that's one issue. The other issue that I think is critical is the consistency of the motors.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, you can spend a lot of money on a motor, but it's who's reconditioning it and who's building it and who's setting it up makes an equally, as much difference.
Yeah, sure.
Geddes, are those
And the
are those
fact that
designed
with
for
brush
stock cars?
motors you need multiples because
Oh.
of the fact that they're operating under that much stress always, that the brushes wear down quickly, the commutators go out of round, all of those kind of deals. And with these motors, the only thing that can actually wear are the bearings.
Right.
And there's 2 little bearings in there, and you can get really, really good bearings for maybe $10 or $12 a pair, or $15 a pair, and away you go.
Yep.
Anyway, that's me for today. Thank you.
Good stuff. Looking forward to progress on that and how well you do.
I'll keep reporting on it as we go.
Good deal. Okay, Paul, did you get that car? Yeah, unmute yourself.
Yeah. Yes, I did. That's the
There you go.
Yeah, that's the monogram one. Yeah.
but that's the wrong blue on the front. But that is a factory painted car. So
Yeah, it was they printed or painted them like that in the factory with the numbers on them.
but this is
on the front and rear anyway.
Tell me if this is the right chassis, because that's the
No.
chassis.
That's a Strombecker chassis. That's not a monogram chassis.
Ah, right. So something else I've got to find then.
So the monogram chassis, if you're looking for, that car came in 3 versions. It came in the race sets with an aluminum chassis with a pin guide.
Yeah.
And it came with a brass chassis with a pin guide. And it came in the Series 2 chassis in the kits with the one that had the steel bracket on the back that's held on with a circlip, and then the wire drop arm with a 16D inline in it.
Okay. So
The other interesting-
there.
Yeah, the other interesting thing too, Paul, if you feel the front hood, those numbers are actually molded into the plastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The front and rear ones, they're molded in.
Yeah, they're both
Yeah.
raised. I know someone who has one of those chassis, Paul.
Do you?
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah, well, whatever we do at this stage is probably going to have to wait till the spring because
That's
I'm
fine.
I'm heading off for 3 months and I don't even want to think about slot cars.
No.
He's into his snowbird.
Do you know anyone who does the glazing for these?
The which?
The glazing.
The glass.
No, I do not.
All right.
The only thing to do there is just keep scouring eBay and find
Yeah.
something damaged that has headlight covers or something. That's all you can do.
The headlight covers are difficult to find. I think the windscreen might be easier, but the headlight covers are difficult.
I like the way it's just painted black inside. It's just
Oh, that is not standard either, because the originals are molded in white plastic and they're not painted at all.
so this could be a kit then.
The screws that are in those posts, are they the big self tappers that go straight into the post, or is there a little brass insert in the post?
I'll undo one. It's a brass insert.
Okay, so that body came off one of the aftermarket kits, the one with the drop arm chassis.
Yeah.
Because the cars that came in the ready to runs had no brass inserts and a bigger self-tapping screw that went straight into the plastic.
Right.
So what color would that be painted inside on that? Would I have to
Whatever
strip
color
it?
you want to paint it, because they were never painted when they were issued from the factory.
Right.
Somebody's painted that though, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a feeling it could be my dad because these are all my dad's cars that I've been
So you just need to
found a
paint the
bo- I found
driver
a
now
box
so
up
that
in the loft.
you need to paint the driver's arms now so that he looks, as we used to say in the day, like he was sitting in a puddle of oil.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm not going to try and take that out the glass because it's still held in by two lugs, but the front's actually cracked.
Cool.
No,
That's cool that you're doing those restorations.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm not touching that body at all. I'm not even going to. I was planning on dipping it until I realised it's all been tamper printed by the factory, so that
Yeah.
stays as.
Yeah, no, that's exactly as they came. Apart from the stripes along the side are decals. So you could probably find reproduction decals for that. I think Ortman might make a set of
Yeah.
reproduction.
Yeah, I need to do those because one side's the number's missing.
Yeah.
And the other side, the line goes. Looks like it's been pissed when he's put it on. But yeah, I love it because I'm finding loads of his stuff that
Oh, great.
that he write. I mean, so I found the Revell GTO, Ferrari GTO,
Gorgeous.
that is got the aluminium adjustable chassis, the long
Yeah, the
rail
ladder
one.
chassis.
Ladder
But the
chassis.
tires look like Saints eating the tires and spat them out and stuck them back on the wheel because they've gone real. They're like, oh, I dread to think when they're like going to get like to come off the actual hubs because they're rotten.
Yeah.
Can all be
Yeah.
fixed.
Yep.
Sorry,
It can all be
Can all
fixed.
be fixed.
It
Yeah.
can all be fixed. Yeah.
and the tires for all these cars they are available, aren't they?
Yep.
In the US.
Well,
They're-
there are Ortmans. You can get them from R&S in the UK.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay then.
Colin Spark. Colin Spark
Colin.
at RS Slut Racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
Colin actually molded the front and rear of the K&B car for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
He's
he'll have
got-
the tires for those.
he's got all kinds of tires, Paul.
Yeah, all right. I'll have words with him.
That's what I used. Some of his Ortmans, although actually that's a lie. He took over. I used the original on the K&B. Those are original formulation Ortmans on the back of that, so they should grip quite well.
Mhm.
Oh, mate, I'll tell you, even my granddaughter was amazed how lovely it is to drive. I couldn't even remember how lovely that car was to drive.
Well, now we have somewhat precision tire truers and all the rest of the stuff. Most cars that you bought then that you used to put the wheel and tire in an electric drill and hold a piece of sandpaper on it. Now you can do so much better work and make the old stuff run so much better.
Yeah. But yeah, now so I've just Googled that paint and I'm going to just order a tin of that.
Mhm.
And I just can't wait to get it and show. So my dad's not very well as it is now, and it was his birthday this weekend, same as my son's, and we went up to visit him. We exchanged all Christmas presents and everything, and yeah, I want to get it done before anything drastically happens.
Cool.
Well,
I
thanks
have
for-
another restoration if anyone wants to see one.
Go on, Em.
Go ahead, Chris. Then we'll get to Mr. Weber.
Well, no, I'll wait my turn.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, John.
There we go. Okay. I'm not sure if this will work. I haven't done the share screen thing before, so I'm
can
not
do it.
sure set up. So this is another episode in the Ferrari Dino 246 SP saga. Let's see here. Think. Here. Okay, so this is a Bergman talked about this before, body from the Strombecker Eldon era I picked up off eBay. And I didn't realize that apparently Eldon or Strombecker, one of them, made a car of this car. They made a model of this car. But anyway, this one has some pretty good bones, but you can see the front end's awful. The mold lines are pretty bad. And there's some other details that are have to be changed. But anyway, that's the idea. And let's see if I move to this. There we go. Okay, side view, rear view. Rotate it around a little here. Then you note the front end. That's the key thing for me. One of the key things for me was the way the front end looks. Okay, this is what it should look like. This is what I'm sure this car is restored somewhat. And when they were built, they were probably not exactly alike from one car to the next, or after one had to be repaired or whatever.
Certainly, I don't think the paint was that good when they were new either.
Oh, God, no. Jesus.
Who knows what this car is worth? It's in some collector's hand. But the car itself is the first mid-engine sports car Ferrari built, and they were built on the pattern of their Formula One cars from that era, like that one that Phil Hill won the World Championship in 1961. They have the engine is very similar, a bit larger displacement, and they changed the block angles a little bit, the cylinder block angles a little bit. But then this is the car I'm trying to model at Targa Florio in 1962. This car won the race in 1962, and I think it was Ricardo Rodriguez and Olivier Jean-Dubien drove this car. I guess this is Jean-Dubien, is my recollection. There's Mr. Rodriguez in the car, different angle, of course. But you can see the difference between the Bergman front end and this front end, how much different they are. So some fairly extensive work that I showed before, and I think I have almost determined that I'm done. I just don't have the skill to take it any further. So this is work in progress, and this car had a molded in interior. The model, Bergman model, had a molded in interior. The chassis I'm using is a Cartrix, little adjustable chassis, somewhat similar to a Sebring, monogram Sebring chassis. But the Bergman model had the, I don't know if you can see do you see my mouse?
Yep.
Okay, so these vents on the Bergman were almost completely gone. Apparently when they reproduced the model, they were not very well done. So I tried to improve them a bit and use some cocktail skewers and plastic toothpicks and things and cut those things down and sanded them and massaged them and glued them on and all that stuff. And then next, you're working on the front end, still working on the sides. The tail is pretty good, pretty accurate, and the dimensions of this model body are pretty good as far as scale matching the original car. Then this is after reapplying some primer. Finally switched to pink primer after I saw somebody using it on YouTube. Switched to a pink primer, and I could not find a really good representation of Ferrari red, I thought. Now I know Ferrari red has changed a lot through the years, but it's not what it used to be probably back then. But anyway, this is my best approximation of it. And I'm going to shoot some clear coat on this, and awaiting decals, or I'll have to make something. So they're fairly simple decal sets. So maybe I can find some. Maybe if I fix them. There's like this business here. There's just not much I can do about it. It's beyond that. Again, it's beyond my skill level. By the time you use the super glue and sand around on it, these things kept popping off. Anyway, big problems for modelers. Oh boy, toys. Anyway, so that's kind of where that is now, and it's been tons of fun. I've learned a lot. I'm still learning a lot from it, and hopefully I'll be able to carry this forward. Thank you.
Looking good.
Looking good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You could always hit those wheels, John. Take the tires off and hit the wheels either with some clear flat dull coat, or
Right.
just some aluminum silver paint. They'll look a little more realistic than the polished chrome stuff.
This, their chrome is a bit on the bright side, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the pictures of your cars back then, the wheels were all painted.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because chroming would actually weaken the spokes, so they painted them.
And of course, these were almost certainly Baranis on the original car, and they had the rim portion were aluminum, but the spokes were not aluminum, of course, and the knockoff was not aluminum. But I think they painted the rims. They painted the whole thing so that it would match.
The whole thing was painted. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for the moment.
All righty, looking good.
Very nice.
Very
That's
much.
nice.
I'll go ahead and hit that
Thank you.
share stop button.
Yes,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing your updates. Looking forward to future updates. And Brian, are you ready? Mr. Giprich, got the right person this time?
Actually, my name's Paul, but I prefer to go by Brian, if that's okay. I got a quick question. Is my video on? Can you see me?
Your video appears to be
Oh,
off.
Something's not on. Is it
Because it
just a
says
little?
it's on, the light's on, but nobody's home. So I'm going to switch to my phone real quick.
It
I
looks
have a
like-
bit of a show and tell, show and ask.
Oh, I'm gonna mute that. Oh, did I mute the wrong one? Dang it.
No, well,
That's okay. How's that?
That's
Good.
nice.
working.
Oh, you need to mute the output on the computer. That's what it is.
Doing that right now.
Doing it right now. Doing it right now.
nothing can go wrong. Go wrong. Go wrong. Go wrong.
To infinity and beyond.
That's what
Okay,
she
good.
said. That's what she
Okay.
said.
Go ahead, Paul.
I have a bit of a show and tell and a show and ask, and oddly enough, it's going to kind of piggyback on what Paul was talking about. The first to show and tell, you guys may recognize this. This is one of the Revell Ferraris. I have the hardtop version as well, and I've had these for a while, and Sebring chassis and all that, and those chassis are in pieces. So what I've been working on is a potted chassis for it.
No.
Don't get all bent out of shape about the super wide tires on it. They're just kind of there as a placeholder. So that's one thing I've been working on. It needs just a few tweaks and it'll be ready to go.
Looking good.
Been
Nice.
working really well.
Very nice.
So I used a standard pod and the motor rides about 1 millimeter too high. So that's one of the things I need to bring down. Or I guess I could put 1 millimeter worth of lead weight on the bottom, but I think I'll just lower the motor a little bit. But looking
Well,
good. I
Brian?
narrowed, not a
Sorry,
standard.
sorry, is that printed with your new printer?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Sorry.
So
It's nice to see you got your printer working, Paul.
thanks, Brian. So been working on that. I actually started this a while ago and just kind of got back to it. This Ferrari's, the bodies are in great shape. I have the other one too, and I also have one of the Coopers as well, the Cobra. Okay,
And if you quit rubbing them on your tabletop there, they'll stay in good shape.
they're not really touching the tabletop per se. But all right, so now the show and ask. You may remember a while back, I went to a show and I bought a bunch of Revell track. There were 3 sets. There was the High Bank set, which came with 2 cars. It came with the Firebird you see here, and it came with the Cougar. The Firebird here actually runs, and it's not bad. The Cougar, the top is smashed, and it's got some other issues. There was the Laguna Seca set, which did not have cars. It should have came with a Cooper and a Chaparral, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was the Gran Turismo set, which came with these 2. Now, in these 2, the Corvette here runs fine. The problem is the tires are so hard, it just sits in one space and rotates. The Ferrari, again, good shape. It's got a broken wire on the guide. So my question is, I went looking for tires, and I'm going to jump back to the laptop now, if that's okay. I'm going to try to anyways. I went looking for tires, and I figured Electric Dreams would be a good place to start. So I went there. All right. Close this. Dang it. What's going on here?
It looks like the computer you dropped off.
Yeah, I was trying to jump back in.
It's disconnected.
Yep.
I kind of know where he's going on this because I had the same issue, and Dennis assisted in restoring the tires for my same cars.
I think I used 38Ns or something like that. I don't recall the number now.
Well, what I found, I'll just stay here. So I went to Electric Dreams, and I'm seeing Ortman tire strips, and there's Ortman ORT 39Cs monogram 132nd rear tires for Series 2 cars. Now, obviously the Firebird is a completely different beast. It's a plastic chassis. The wheels are definitely different size than they are on the Vette and the Ferrari. The other thing they had was the Ortman 39A monogram 132nd scale front tires pair. Also fits RSW05 Goodyear front tires for all monogram 132nd scale cars, will fit many others. Finest reproduction, yada, yada, yada. My question is, I swear when I was on here the other day, I saw a 39B, which said it fits the set cars. And I was kind of a little bit confused as to what was a set car, because these cars all came in sets. But I'm not.
Those ones came in, and Monogram had similar things where they had cars that came in sets and cars that were issued as kits. And the same differences that you're seeing in the Revell is what you saw in Monogram. If the 39Cs are not showing on the website anymore, it basically means we're out of stock.
The C is showing, but the B is not.
The B is not. Okay, probably because I used them all up for Dewan's cars.
Did you just do that recently?
Well, no, not recently. Not in the last week or two.
Okay, because I swear I was just on here the day before yesterday and saw B. So somebody must have sucked them up, because one said Series 1 and one said Series 2. So which of these cars is the Series 2?
No, those are not Monogram. Those are Revell. There's a difference. In the old days, Revell and Monogram were 2 completely different companies.
Right. The Series 2 tires will fit the Revell car with the wider wheels and the plastic chassis.
Okay. So it'll fit that should fit the Firebird. That's
Yeah,
you said that's
although
the
if
Series
you-
2.
yeah.
Now the
The
other thing they do have is they have a Ortman ORT 39 tires rear for monogram 132nd. It says 9mm.
Yep. A lot of the Series 1 cars had those, and their F1 cars had those tires as well.
Okay, because they don't give any specifics on that one as far as what it fits.
Yeah.
If you
The other one
actually
needs
want
some
the
specific
very,
knowledge.
if you actually want the very correct tires from Ortman for those cars,
Okay.
I'll tell you now that the Firebird front was 50L and rear is 50K, 50L and 50K. The GTO with the SP80 chassis, it says. Now, which one was the SP80 chassis? Is that the one that he's got there? I think not. Might be.
Looks like it has a number stamped on it.
It does. 12918.
Yeah, doesn't
No.
help me.
How about the GTO?
50N, the GTO is 50N for the front and 50M for the rear. The Corvette, the 60 Corvette, 50E front and rear.
All right. And now these are Ortman tires you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be Ortman ORT 50Ls.
Yeah.
And do they stock these? Do you know?
I
Or-
would have to check.
Okay, well, I'll check the website. I was just under, this just seemed to show everything. They had a lot more in 124 scale than they did in 132nd, obviously. They've got
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cox, Rust Kit,
Yeah.
Monogram, a lot of 124th. I got some 124 chassis too, but I'll mess with that later. They got foam tires on them and everything else, and I'm not even sure it's something that would be worth doing to run on my particular track.
I take the foam off and put Ortmans on them. They'll be much better.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know, I've heard Ortmans are quite good. I'm not looking to modify the cars. It would just be nice to be able to run them around the track. The Firebird actually doesn't go that bad. The tires still have some life in them. The fronts have gone rock hard. But the Corvette, it's like a clown car. You put it on the track, it winds up and it just sits there and kind of moves sideways. It doesn't go forward at all.
Right.
So
Dennis, those Ortman tires you just gave, the 50M and 50M, are they for both same front and rear?
No, the
For the
250.
GTO.
Well, this is off the Ortman list, the official Ortman list, and the 250 GTO front is 50N, N for Nelly, and the rear is 50M, M for Mary.
Right.
However, the Chaparrals are the same, 50N and 50M. The Corvette is different for some reason or other.
Yeah.
The Cougar and the Firebird are the same, L and K front and rear.
Make a trip out to Las Vegas, and I have a few.
And the Chaparrals are the same as the GTO and the with the N for the front and the M for the rear.
it's just
The Cobras as well.
it's hilarious how high these sit.
Mm-hmm.
That would
Yeah, the other thing you have to watch for with that Firebird too, Brian, is I think it's like a Tupperware plastic, and it tends to warp near the rear wheel arches sometimes.
This body's actually in pretty nice shape. The sticker's coming off,
You're lucky. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
but it's in pretty decent shape otherwise. The Cougar, not so much. The whole roof, it almost looks like half of it's melted away. And you can see the Corvette's actually missing one of the A-pillars. I do have the glass for it, but it's missing one of the A-pillars. The other question was in relation to guides on this, because this one again is the Corvette. It's got this white guide. It functions. They don't turn very far.
No.
better in
Yeah,
that
they do.
direction than in this direction.
Well, I mean, if you want to, you can take a Dremel or a file and
File the
just
corners.
file back those ears like bend the guide over and see where it touches the chassis, and then just file a 45-degree angle bit on your chassis there, and you'll get lots of guide rotation.
Okay, now this is the Ferrari. Now it has a different guide. It's black, and it looks, this one's is broken here on this side. The wire's off. Is there an aftermarket guide that might be better or easier to use? And I'm not sure about braids on this.
You can braids for those. You can still find probably some yeah, I'd have to see it without, but I mean, you could certainly probably use a TSRF guide on that. And
it's not pulling out. I just tried to pull it out. It ain't coming out.
Yeah, no, there's probably a
You'll
little.
have to take all the solder off the back first.
Yeah, yeah.
Now the Corvette, I was able to pull this one out. It came right out. I stuck it back in and it ran just fine.
Yeah, they were originally, there was no solder up the front of those. It was all just contact, dry contacts. But yeah, those guides are reasonably okay. Turn it over so we can see the post.
Yeah.
What size is that post? It looks like it's a 3/16 post, not a 1/8 post.
No, you'll have to get, yeah.
Yeah, it's bigger than that for sure. And I want to say the Ferrari, I can't see I'm having some issues with my eyes, actually has a round nut on it.
But neither of them should have nuts on them at all. As far as I recall, they had a push nut on them when they were stock.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that the guide wobbled properly.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this looks like somebody tinkered with this one then.
Yeah, it was an upgrade so that the guide didn't wobble.
Yeah. I mean, you can, again, it depends how original you want to keep these. You can drill 2 holes in the top of that guide and put the wires in there, clean up the metal guide tongue so it doesn't interfere. Yeah, that's, for that, if you wanted to keep that original, I would just get those are little spade connectors. You could just get some of the original Carrera braid with the little fold over bits on it, and those will stick in there with the little spade just fine.
Oh, nice. I have some of those, so great. Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the help, gentlemen. That's all I got.
I'll do like that, Ferrari.
Sweet stuff.
Alrighty, moving on. Big Den, what you got?
Good morning, afternoon, evening, November in general. Just a pretty low tech show and tell today, more of a hold and tell. Recently I've been telling people that I've got this bit of a love affair with advanced slot cars. So I saw on a local website a couple of months ago that they had this, the Mirage GR8. I think, see that all right?
Yeah.
I've taken the driver out to paint him because he was just white. So,
Great.
When I went to the website to purchase it, they told me it was out of stock, even though it's shown on the website and still shown on the website. So I was very fortunate that my local retailer in the south of the state, also known as Phil, managed to have one of these. So the story had a happy ending, and I managed to grab one of them. Haven't done a lot of running with it yet. And the other thing is I've a slotted Mercedes white kit, which I've just done on not quite a fantasy livery, but the Vitaphone decals originally were on an Opel of some sort, but I had a spare set of Pato's decals and things like that, so I thought I'll freelance it, and there's the result. It will look better when it's on his chassis, hopefully. Just something for the real Brian. Another possible option. I've got some in the past for the tires for your Revell cars are the There's the French based company, Slot Cars Tires. They've got quite an array of tires in 24th and 32nd for older cars. So might be worth a look if you don't have managed to find another source for Ortmans or any of those, Brian.
Appreciate that, Big Gun. Hey, does anybody know on that topic? Does anyone make a silicone tire for these cars? Because that's typically what I run.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Black Car Corner, they had the Paul Gauge as well as the Quick Slicks.
Paul Gauge are urethane. Yeah, there used to be a guy, but what the hell was it?
Smiling Ray?
Which was the outfit that had some tires called Super Tires? Weren't they silicone?
Super Tires are silicone, but they didn't ever make any that were direct fits onto vintage wheels.
Okay.
They were all more modern than that. There was a guy called
Indie
Tiny
Grips,
Garage or Tiny something. Tiny Motors. Was a guy out of Michigan or somewhere up there. Doesn't make them anymore, unfortunately, but they were silicone and they were beautiful. He made sets for the Monogram Formula Ones and others that I have. They were really, really nice. But unfortunately, I don't know whether the guy's still around, whether he just stopped, but I haven't seen them. Used to buy them on eBay. Mm-hmm. They were really, really good.
What about Mike Stott? You think he might make them?
Not that I know of. I don't know that Mike makes anything for vintage.
Right.
Yeah.
The other place to get the urethane stuff is from Dart Hobbies in Canada. If Arch is still making those were very good.
Good luck.
Oh, okay. Why are the Canadians all laughing now?
I don't think he's talking about you, John.
I thought they were polite, those guys.
That was polite.
That was the diplomatic one. Okay, I got it.
I just got one of Dart's Corvair kits that he made, and it took just over 3 years.
Wow.
To get it, but the quality of his casting and the resin, and it's just absolutely no one even comes close. No one comes close.
Yeah, that's amazing.
All right, all done, Big Den? Assuming, yep. All righty. Any other show and tell things, or shall we move on?
I have one.
Oh yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Okay. In terms of restorations, I was asked to do this.
Dynamic.
Dennis will know what this is.
It's a dynamic center section.
Well,
and front end.
Yeah, this in the early 60s, early to mid 60s, company called Dynamic made all of these motor mounts. So when you think about, motor pods and stuff like that, they were out in the early 60s. And Dynamic made these for basically every single motor that was available. 16D, 26D, 36D, Pitmans,
Wilson's, Pitmans.
like everything you could imagine. They also so this was all cast aluminum. They made a cast aluminum guide tongue, which I have not used on this. And they made cast aluminum front axle carriers. And in the early 60s, if you weren't a good chassis builder, as I certainly wasn't in the mid 60s, the option was to buy these bits and hang some pans on them or hang some weight on them or do something to make them go really well. So that's what I've done with this one.
Dynamic actually provided a bolt-on lead weights as well.
Yeah,
They look like fishing
did come up
sinkers.
with, they did have some factory pans, which I've got a picture of somewhere, but look completely different than this. So this section is maybe a little bit easier to see here. Yeah, so that's the center section sits on. This whole center section rattles around a bit. The rattling was really rather annoying to me. It was really rattling around. So I put some square brass tubing onto the motor carrier and some little brass bits with some pins. And then I just stuck some silicone motor cabling over the pins. So that sort of moves around in the squares, which really quietens the thing down. So it's quite nice. The only thing that's not original at this stage, and I'm waiting for, is a period correct guide flag. The post holder, the little collar is fine, but everything else is what you would see on a pretty hot car.
Yeah.
In the mid 60s, in the 64, 60, up to about 66, this would have been a pretty competitive car going around the track.
Although with foam tires, of course, in those days.
Yes. This obviously has urethanes on it. These are original Ortman blanks that I have quite a few of. But an interesting, in the day, everyone used to, these are Cox Superflex lead wires. You used to buy these in a package, and everyone used to use 2 or 3 at a time to get every little ounce of power you could to your motor, although these didn't draw all that much. This motor is built by a guy named John Havlicek out of New Jersey, and he does a great job in restoring and modifying old motors. This is a classic FT16D. He rewinds these and puts new bushings in the can end and rewinds his own motor springs and little heat sinks for the brush tabs, etc., etc. That's kind of neat. And then the last one, what it looks like underneath. Is that guy. So typically on a dynamic, you would buy this piece depending on what motor you wanted to use, and they made them both inline and sidewinders. And then they would have a metal alloy tongue that would bolt on here with a couple of slots in it. So you could cut it and slide it back and forth depending on the wheelbase, and then you just bolt on the front axle carrier and you were pretty well ready to go. So again, this was, and this chassis, or this type of chassis, the dynamic chassis, was used well for 32nd scale club racers. It was used, for at least another 10 years. And you could make up some pretty decent handling little 32nd scale cars with all these bits and pieces. So I've got a big box of all these pieces, and it's just, I'm getting sort of bored building plastic cars, so I'm having more fun building some of the stuff that I remember that was cool when I was a kid. So
is this a restoration, or is this a new build?
No, this is a new build for somebody.
Oh, okay, cool.
Chris, could you show the top of that again?
Sorry?
Could you show the top of that chassis again?
Sure, I can.
I mean, is this almost pod-like with that center section like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, pod's a complete misnomer.
Yeah, it's more like a polycar Formula One, where you have the center piece that holds the motor, and then the front piece holds the sides and the body and the front wheels and the guide.
Yeah.
Although in this one, the motor pod and the guide are all one piece.
Right. Yeah, this whole pan section here, if if I undo the screw that you saw under here, I can slide the whole pan section out and just have the guide flag, the guide tongue, and the post as one piece, which if you were building a Formula One car, you would do a variation of that. And then if you're doing a sports car, you would either bolt on, they had body mounts that would screw on here, and they were just L-shaped things, and you put them on the body with old bloody self-tapping screws, and they, you know, that's what you did. And I did hundreds like that. They look like hell, but that's what you did. You see them on eBay all the time, and the body mounts are all twisted and bent, and the screws are all, you know, but that's what it was. So this is just a little more elegant and certainly a much better performing way to do the thing. So yes, essentially a motor pod, and they made all their, I don't know how, they must have made 40 of these anyway, different variations and sizes and shapes and all kinds of stuff. So this was great for builders back in the day. Unlike what people do today with motor pods, which is create some movement in them, this is all bolted up solid, this one piece. You didn't need that because we were traditionally running sponge tires, so the sponge tires had enough compression to allow some flex in the chassis. So the outside tire in a corner could compress, and the inside tire would still touch the track, which is a little more difficult with hard tires like this. So you have to change the dynamics of how the chassis flexes. But and again, motor pods, as I think I've said before, were never designed from a performance aspect. They were always designed as a production cost, from a production cost perspective.
Yeah, I understand. Chris, just to clarify, the front wheels aren't attached. Okay, so the motor and the guide flag is all one section running down the street.
So this motor pod, right? There's two screws underneath that attach to the guide tongue, which goes right all the way down.
Okay.
Then there's a hole in the guide tongue with a screw coming up that holds the front axle in.
Okay, that was what I was asking. The front axle is actually a separate component. But it is attached to the center section.
Yep.
So literally you could take the pans off of this and you would still have a running car.
Yep. Yep. Which is what we did. I mean, you would build something like this without the big pan section, and then you would get their little body mounts, and you could they had slots in them so you could slide them in and out. So you'd nest them close up to the motor pod, and then they had like two little self-tapping screws that went through the Formula One body or IndyCar body or whatever you were running at the time. So
yeah, I'm actually holding a Chaparral that's got something similar to that. There's two screws through the body, and then it's like a bent clip that just kind of slides onto the chassis. I guess my fascination with this is we talk about motor pods, and again, I understand, it was never really meant as a performance issue or component. It was done that way for manufacturing purposes. But I always wondered, would there be, say, your setup here, get rid of the pans, so the center section with the motor and the guide tongue itself, would there be any benefit to that guide tongue being more like a pod, where it could move separately from, it would be one piece, or it would be connected, but it would actually be able to move? Would there be any advantage to a design like that? So instead of the pod moving, the pod moving within the chassis, you would have that pivot or swivel, whatever you want to call it, between the motor and the guide flag.
I don't believe so. However, I never cottoned on to all that stuff. However, there's been tons of designs through the years that you would have like an arrow shaped pan here, like the pan would come up, and then there'd be a 45-degree angle here with a screw here that would allow you to mount a short guide tongue with the back piece, and then you'd have some movement side to side of the guide flag. There's been puzzle pan, like all kinds of names of chassis design. Dennis, I know, has played around with sort of a lateral flexing guide flag. Lots of guys have tried it. Lots of guys have liked it. I'm certainly, there's better guys out there at this than me, but I've certainly never understood. I've never realized the benefit of a side-to-side flexible guide flag.
I think that in general, any uncontrolled movement, in other words, any free slide, pivot, wobble, hinge, rotate, whatever kind of movement you want, anything that is loose and uncontrolled and undamped, not necessarily a good idea on a slot car. Particularly as you get more and more traction, you need less and less and less of that sort of thing. It just creates chatter. So eventually you want to dampen every movement.
Right.
So those ones that I did with the sideways flexing guides, that is actual side flex of two wires down the middle of the car, and it's kind of damped. But even those, if you dampen that movement with a piece of tape, sometimes the car gets better.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, all the current flexi guys are now discovering that if you create some flex between the body mount plate and the base plate using some reinforced tape, you get more consistent handling. This one, when I put not only did this rattle around a lot, and was fairly typical at the time. As soon as I put these silicone bits on here, which allowed the pans to flex sideways and up and down as opposed to rattle, the handling improved dramatically. And to Dennis's point, there is no car ever built, slot car 1-to-1, that works. As an example, I mean, everyone's driven down the highway and seen, some guy driving down the highway with a bad shock and his tires bouncing all over the place. If you can't control the position of the tires and keep them in contact with the track, you have a lack of grip and inconsistent handling. So flex is critical. Free movement there's nothing good about it at all.
So controlled flex is what we're after.
Sorry?
Controlled flex.
Yes. Yeah.
For example, I always thought that way about excessive body float. I know I see a lot of these guys like to run their body float where, that body just wobbles all over. And my thought is, as soon as I head in the corner, that thing just flops over to the side. It's not like it's gradually leaning to the outside. It just flops out there. So it's a drastic change in geometry, center of gravity, whatever. So I'm one of those guys. I basically run my bodies just loose enough that I know that they're not twisting on the chassis. They're not having any effect on the chassis. Pods seem to be kind of hit or miss. Some cars seem to like it loose. Some prefer just barely loose. But again, there's all other factors involved there.
Yeah. Again, some motor pods done up tight will distort the chassis plate and make the whole thing go out of alignment. If you're running on a plastic track, if you looked under a microscope or look closely, half the bloody time your rear wheels are off the track because the track's so bloody bouncing, unless you're running with magnets. So that can help. Certainly on wood tracks, the trend is to eliminate free movement and replace it with some sort of a controlled flex pattern.
Chris, a couple of questions about this chassis. First off, the square tubing at the back, how did you attach that? Is it
I just used a little JB weld on the brass to just tuck it onto the side of the motor pod there.
All right. And then that threaded hole that's in the top of the right-hand side.
I have no idea. I could tell you it's some special thing that I designed and put in there. that was on that
What's
was
there?
already, it's not threaded, it's just a hole, and that was
Oh.
drilled into the bracket when I pulled it out of the, it's been there forever.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Chris?
Okay. Thanks.
Chris,
I just
come on, Dennis.
no. I'm done.
That's one of Dad's?
There you go. Yeah, that's a dynamic with a 26D motor sidewinder. And that has the guide tongue with their little flex hinge on there. And
It pivots.
and
That
those
absolutely horrible drop arm thing in the middle. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Awful.
That is that flex on a longitudinal basis is probably the worst thing you could ever do to a slot car.
But it's even
It's-
got
it's-
the original sponges on the back.
Oh man, that's all original dynamic, man.
That's
Oh,
never-
And-
it's never
and
been
those
run.
are the body mounts I was mentioning.
yeah.
With the big slots, you undo the screws and slide them in for a narrow body, or undo the screws and slide them out for a wider body. That's very cool.
But it's never
Very
been
nice.
run.
Yeah.
Never
Gorgeous.
ever been used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the same as what you've got there.
Uh-huh.
Variation. That's the same. If you turn it, oh yeah, that's no, that's yep. That is one of their specialty bits that has the front axle carrier molded into the guide tongue.
Yeah. That's into the front.
But
end.
it's-
Yeah. It's
That's a
not bolted on.
sidewinder instead of an inline.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
front.
they made sidewinders, end bell drive, can drive, inlines. They any motor you had, any motor that was available in the 60s, you could buy a motor bracket from Dynamic.
I've just noticed it says dynamic on the guide.
Yeah, and it's got that weird spring for the
Yeah, I
centering
was
of
just-
the guide.
Yeah, that's
That
mental.
I don't know that's original, but maybe it was. I don't recall seeing that before.
But it's well, I wouldn't say the gear mesh is good, but
Well, it looks a bit snug to me. I mean, it's easy to adjust the lash on that.
Yeah. But
the lateral
That's a
axle.
nice piece.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is the box it's come in, right?
Okay.
And there's a note inside it which says,
Yeah, Brian.
"Dear Brian, yeah." There's invitation to a 6-hour race on the 10th of September 1967, and that was the chassis he was given to 1/24 scale Sports GT.
Where was the race?
Elton Models.
Okay. Cool. That would be to fix that up, Paul. That would be that you'd be amazed how well that car goes. That's a pretty fast little car.
I'll send it over then. What body would go on that?
Any dynamic? Well, at the time, pretty well everybody was using Lancers.
Yeah,
Dynamic.
Lancer or Dynamic, one of the like a
Yeah.
330p Ferrari or something like that.
Yep.
But it's Ian Skelling. I don't know. He rings a bell, that name, but that's who-
Wasn't he the owner of Elton Model?
Was it?
Could have been. I don't
Oh,
remember.
right. Says light snacks will be on sale at the shop.
Cool.
Yeah.
When's that? Let's go.
Yeah.
60s. Yeah, let's
Max.
82-foot Sandtex surfaced wooden track
Oh.
with a 31-foot straight. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Dynamic.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are some decals I found online. Ferrari decals, vintage Ferrari decals, are pretty hard to find, really.
Yeah.
And so these are some I found on eBay from a guy in North Carolina slot car, NC slot car. NC
Yep.
slot car is his handle. And these are supposed to be vintage you know,
They are.
NOS from some warehouse. He said.
Yeah.
They certainly looked like it.
They came in a pad and they got torn off one by one.
Yep.
When you bought them.
Interesting. Cool. I think these are for a Dino. I believe there was a Dino that ran at Le Mans in 1965 or 6. You know, the pretty Dino in 1965 or 6 ran that livery, those numbers and those sponsors and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so but these are 132, not 124th.
Yeah. Dynamic did make a butyrate 312P.
In 32nd.
That's nice. Yeah.
Could be that. Could be that.
The 612 as well.
Yep.
Alrighty. Any other show and tell? Let's do some Club Corner. Past, present, or future racing events you want to talk about. Now's the time. Dewan's got his hand up. He's ready to go. We're ready to listen. Go ahead, Dewan.
Okay, let's see if I can bring this up right. Yeah, this weekend was very eventful. I had let's see if I can get my. This should be it. We had the F1 races out here in Vegas, and I had about 7 associates or friends of mine that came out with their kids and things like that. And where am I at? That's not what I wanted. Everything just, oh, here we go. This is not what I wanted. This is not, there we go. And there we go. Right here? Okay. So yeah, this is the mother of these two kids, and 17 years old. He got a $2,500 ticket to the F1 race.
Wow.
But anyway, before they did that, they came by and we spent the whole day racing F1s. These aren't F1s on the track right now, but we raced some F1s and things like that on my track here. So, what else am I? Yeah, okay, yeah, so that's and just a little more of that. So that's that one. And then while they're doing the F1 race, I made a mad dash down to, let me stop this share. And go to this one. Made a mad dash down to Los Angeles, or El Segundo, as it's better known, to participate in okay. Oh, here it goes. That's what. There. The inaugural racing of the Samson Raceway for Far Out Club. And this is our group that raced, and this is the first race. And there's Sir Samson himself, as he's dubbed. And
that's on the Polycar track, Dewan?
Yes, it is the 6-lane Polycar. Yeah,
and it's nice. It's nice that the namesake was participating. That's awesome.
Well, I was only there because of Dewan's activities and his agitation. Because I wasn't on the original invitation for some reason. And Dewan started sending out all these panic emails saying, "How can you race on the Samson Raceway if Dennis isn't there?"
Dennis,
I had to rearrange my very busy calendar, and
you know what it was, Dennis? They just didn't want you to win everything. That's all.
Well, geez, I didn't, so that's fine. But it was fun.
Yeah,
everything. It all worked well. There's still a little bit of work to be done on the track, but everything seemed to work fine. We had a good time. Go, Dewan.
It was a bit of a challenge for some of us, me particularly. But nevertheless, this is again the first first heat of the Samson Raceway, and that's Sir Sampson's little touch-up kit for what's all in there? That's why I did that.
It's just a little round can that I found somewhere, and I put a top in it that I could cut some holes in. So there's a bottle of oil, there's a bottle of brake juice, there's a bottle of alcoholic tire cleaner that I've been known to sip from when the racing goes really bad. And the big bottle is actually a bottle of NSR oil. And then there are some smaller holes that will take the set screwdrivers and a Torx wrench and a screwdriver that's not in there right now. And then attached to the side there, because the can is magnetic, is just a little magnetic motor cooler. And I just stuck it onto a piece of plastic because it was easier for me to move around like that. It doesn't fall over as easily. And also I was trying to use that area of plastic as somewhere to put some of the sticky pad material so that I could just wipe the car across it. That didn't work quite as well as I'd hoped. So I've still got some redesign to do there.
NSR oil at a far out race?
Well, I didn't use it, but it was there. And they didn't bug me about it. So.
And this was the end result. I held everybody up.
Good for you. That was the race with the Revo slot cars.
Yes, that's correct.
So we were running Revo slot GT1s and GT2s, absolutely stock out of the box, stock tires, everything. And what we found was that those of us that have been running the cars a long time, where the tires have been worn in and some of the other tracks, is on the more abrasive polycar track, the rubber started balling up quite a lot. If you drove the car really hard, the rubber started balling up. There was, and you started to lose traction towards the end of the heat. The interesting part, though, was that at the beginning of the heat, when they were cool, they didn't grip as well. About halfway through the heat was the best time. Then the car had traction, and then again towards the end of the heat, you'd start losing it.
Yep. So he sure won that hands down. He was 7+ laps over everyone. And this was the next. No, this is still the real slot results. I didn't do the F1, so I actually left right after I did my heated F1. So if you notice, Eddie Shore, he set the track record in every single lane. That's kind of a little showcasing there. So that was that one, and then I think I have another one that just showed the race. Oops. Oh, I've got to put the sound anyway. Well, that was the actual race. I forgot to add the sound. Oh well. You can see that. And that tunnel right there was that was.
Of course, there's some problems. There's a very tight right-hander just before the bridge, the first bridge, and a lot of people had trouble staying on there. And then, of course, the car ends up under the bridge, which meant track calls to get them out there.
Okay, so that's all I had for the platform.
After the NSR, after the Revo slot race, we ran NSR Formula Ones, and they were actually quite a lot quicker than the Revo slot cars. So they were very nice to run on them. It was fun.
Any thought of reversing the direction? Because I thought that was going to be a problem too.
I guess that's a good possibility. I did ask about that at one stage. I can always ask again. However,
for the F1, I did finish about three stages up. I think so I did a little bit better.
You did well.
Yeah. Well, it's a learning curve. I'm happy with what I'm doing. So I'm happy about that.
As long as you're having fun. All right, good stuff. And Razim and Naz, would you like to talk about a recent event?
Yeah, of course, of course. I've been trying a little bit to get back into racing. I raced at an analog club here in Sweden, in my hometown, 10 to 15 years ago. But unfortunately, there are no really 132 clubs left anymore, specifically not in the digital ones. So I a little bit decided then to go back into racing and attending a race in Amsterdam. That's a 12-hour drive from home. So, but you know, good to go somewhere if you want to have fun. So I then, if I can find a little share bottom, yeah. So that should be, I'm sharing my screen, right, or?
No.
No.
Usually after you.
Oh,
after
okay. Okay.
There we go.
Need to click
Now.
on share also. So, so I then went down to Henry's track in Amsterdam. He lives not far from the Schiphol airport, walking distance more or less. And you've seen the photos on my own slot form. Here is, he has a workshop with a big loft on it. And here is his Carrera digital track, which we were running Oxygen on. That loft is actually much bigger compared to what you may have seen in his pictures, because he has shown pictures of his three tracks, but I didn't realize before that they actually were next to each other. So here he has a Nico track and off-road track, and there in the back of the picture, the Carrera digital track. So unfortunately, I don't have an actual picture of the race itself because it didn't went the way we planned to it. We did some practice sessions and they went well. And then in the first heat, which was about to be was planned to be a 20-minute heat, the system froze after 15 minutes. And then we tried with another RMS software and it froze again. And the third one, same thing happened again. I actually didn't mind too much about that, because one reason I wanted to go down there is to let's say, see how these events run and what the problems people have, because I'm writing software for this. So to actually experience first-time problems that people have was actually a good thing for me. And what we did then to eventually solve the problem is to change the software in the further dongler to a version which specifically said that it didn't solve the problem, it actually solved. But then we can have some at least everything turned into a test session, and we can have run some successful, say, test races with up to 7 or 8 drivers. So when the system works, I mean, it's so incredible fun. I haven't been racing with that many Oxygen drivers myself before, and we had, we had a really good time, and maybe Henry was focused on the problems we have, but I really enjoyed it, and we have made some good friends there and everything. So so it was fun. The thing we sort of lesson learned is that we need to help Slot IT a little bit with put the release notes into things, and that will improve the quality. And yeah, so that was a good learning. But we're working out. So another part of that trip for me was also to hand over a little bit early Christmas gift to Henry. And the background for all of this is that for me to get going back into racing again, I will probably then start to race at the 124 club, which is nearby. And then I do no longer really have need for my 30mm 4-lane polycar track. So I've sold that, and I've kept my old Ninko track, in boxes and used part of that for lane changes and pit lanes for my polygon track. But as I'm selling my polygon track, I didn't have the need for an Inco staff. So the best thing I thought actually could be used for that was to let it find a better home and actually donate it to Henry instead. So here is where we're handing over all the boxes from Vito to Henry. Yeah, so well, even if the event didn't go as planned, I actually went home, back home with a lot of these and actually a smile on my face. And then also some new ideas as well, because when you do in a digital race, I want to see things that happen and we run with few simulations. It's fun, but it's a little bit hard to follow on the page, on the screen, everything that happens. So what I did, if it's my camera on. There it is, yep. So got some ideas that I'll develop, and that is to use the SCP controller and put some smaller little things on it, a little display. It's not powered right now, but if I can develop a little software for it, then you can attach it to your controller and use that to see your position or your fuel level or stuff like that. It's a bigger version of this as well. I'll probably develop some software for which you can attach and have a display with your driver position or fuel level or wherever, and a little bit easier to follow, well, the data you need when you're driving a race like that, and trying to look on the screen and find out the information that is for you. And today, my Oxygen 4.0, 4.x dongle arrived, so now I just need to simply figure out how to activate it. It was a little more complicated, I thought. I haven't solved it yet, we'll see. But now I can at least start writing software for it.
So is that compatible with Oxygen, or is it for just generic for the SCP controller in general?
The dongle, or what you refer to?
The display that you have for SCP controller, is that specifically designed for Oxygen, or
well, yes, it's SCP. Yes, it is. But you can also attach it to something called CRI, which you can use, add an analog module to it and use it for analog racing as well.
Okay, excellent.
And you can then use it as a wireless analog controller.
So
of course, then
you need to. So if you're using that for analog racing, then where does the data come from for the display?
You mean for this one, or yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, even if it doesn't, even for digital or analog racing, it doesn't come from the controller itself. Yeah, it needs it needs to come for the RMS program somehow.
Okay.
So yeah, I need to, let's say, develop things or attach to existing RMSs that output information.
Yeah. So basically, to answer Dewan's question, yes, it's pretty much Oxygen only, but if a developer out there wanted to make it work for their analog RMS, they could get the necessary information and have it also work for their analog RMS.
Right. And if you, I mean, the trouble is they don't publish the information, but if you did, you could basically get the data. You could emulate the dongle and get the data directly. Basically, what I did is I tapped into the CRI, and I can now get that data that's going to the car chip and do whatever I want with it and send it all over the place. So the difficulty is that the Oxygen guys are really focused on getting 4 out and all the inherent issues that go along with doing something that complex. But what would really help the hobby is if some of these intermediate protocols were a little bit more available, so you didn't have to reverse engineer them, which isn't always easy. You could do a lot of stuff, especially like Raz was showing that's a neat idea. And there's a lot of ways to get that done without having the RMS have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your presentation a few weeks ago. Really liked it, really enjoyed it. I mean, the more people involved that sort of work with this, and even if, okay, maybe something that personal that's that you know, maybe doing for your own stuff. If you publish your work, it gives ideas for someone else. And if we all start to do that, we can sort of get back to the situation that maybe slot forum was 10, 15 years was digital was new, that we can share information and work with each other, and instead of working in our own silos, as a software term, or working by our own. And if we share information with each other, and then we so can benefit it, even if not obvious from the beginning.
Well, I struggle with that because, you know, you don't want to step on what Oxygen or the Slotted guys are doing for themselves. It's a business. It's about revenue. So you want to be careful, and, you know, kind of have their blessing if you start talking about stuff that they kind of deem proprietary and want to keep for them and products that they do. So it's tricky. I had like a 3-hour call with Clive just talking about stuff like this, and, you know, he's focusing a lot of his time on exactly this hole that exists between. He's more on the Scorpius, I mean the Scale Electric side, SSD stuff, but nonetheless the stuff is the same, you know, as far as what you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some more Club Corner. Are you all done, Anders?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Jim has had his hand up. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, we had our monthly race at Fast Track Hobbies last weekend, and not much of a crowd. We had 8 cars, so it turned out to be okay. We had a couple, one first timer, or first time to this type of racing, and so I loaded one of my cars. You can see my 2 Marlboro livery cars there, and so he ran the Nissan and I ran the Jaguar. And I'm not going to go into a complete race report, but here's the podiums in Group C, podium in GT3. GT3, we allow various cars. It's a fixed drivetrain, so you have to run the NSR 21.4 motor, angle winder motor in angle winder configuration. And other than that, you can change chassis, gears, whatever. The sideways cars have been doing really well. We've had a couple scale autos. We've had obviously a lot of NSRs, but I really like the sideways 4GT. NSR is a spec, or the NSR F1 is a spec race, more or less. Tires are open, and that's about it. Stock gears, stock gear ratios. So it's a pretty competitive class that it's fairly easy to build. Group 5 is fairly new to the commercial tracks. We've been running it 3 or 4 months now, and the M1s have somewhat dominated. You know, we've had winners with the Capris. We've had some others. And we do have various cars when you look at the whole grid, but the M1 seems to be the most popular car there, I guess, because it's the lowest or whatever. But it works really well. I do want to bring up one thing. The 4GT that I have is, like I said, it's really good. And it was very difficult to run that car down to 7.7. But Greg, I'm working on the video, but this is with a slotted G25 tires. And the video is taking longer than I thought because there's some complications in some of the stuff in getting around that. But the G25 tires on a high bite wood track with enough power, these worked awesome on the GT3, where you've got plenty of power with that angle winder long can motor. I put the same set of tires on the Group 5 car, and it bogged the car. There was just too much bite. So as long as you've got enough, you know, the class you're running has enough power, these tires work extremely well. And, you know, Ian, I think, is the one that kind of discovered the G25 to run on wood tracks at the slot at Nats. But man, they are just awesome. And to me, every one of my cars now more or less has these tires on it. Fast Track is, they have 3 tracks. They have a Kingelman. They have the Yellow Dragon road course that we race on, and they also have a track called the Purple Angel. But their 24 scale program pretty much disappeared after they hosted the Nationals last year. And so they've resurrected it, and now they're starting to race 24 scale again. I think 3 times a month, alternating between 2 tracks, the Red Kingelman and the Purple Angel. It's a spec car. It's JK, I think it's a JK21. I'm not positive on that. It's a Hawk 7 motor, spec gear ratio, pre-painted bodies only. And you can see the price there, $110 for a ready to run. The owner of the track, Dwight, took this car out of the showcase, gave it to Justin Colvin. Justin changed the guide and the braid. Other than that, the car was right out of the showcase, and it was immediately competitive. So I think they've developed a pretty good program here with this class. One of the tracks, like I said, is called the Purple Angel. It's kind of a unique track. I think there's 2 of them from what I understand, but there's not multiples of these like there are plenty of King style tracks. So the Purple Angel is fast. It's got a super high bank on the right side of the track. And you drive down this track from the driver's stand, which is right by the arrow. You drive right to left. You go into a 180, and then you go under the bridge and up around the bank. And it's a totally, I've never seen anything like it. And the first 6 months I ran on this, I got confused. I was blipping the bank because I'm not used to going under a bridge and going into this full high bank. It's high enough that if your car stops there when the time goes off, the rear end slides. That's just the way the car sits. At the end of a heat if you're in the bank. So it's a really high bank. So anyway, the program is going pretty good for 24 scale. And we're racing there every month in 32nd scale. And Greg, I've lost my cursor again. So that's NorCal for this last week.
Good stuff. Lots of fun going on.
I did get to drive one of the 24 scale cars. And I've never driven a Hawk 7 motor, so maybe Dennis or Chris would know. The cars had no brakes. I mean, comparatively, I cranked my brakes all the way up and wanted more. So I'm not sure.
It's quite possible. It depends on the gearing, I guess.
Yeah, it's a spec gearing. Offhand, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, by comparison to a 132nd scale car, they won't have the brakes because they're going a lot faster, and I don't think that those motors inherently have as much brake as a 32nd scale motor would have.
But it's good to see them getting back with a 24 scale program. They had I think 12 or 13 guys there last Saturday.
That's good.
So
yeah,
it's
good.
For whatever reason, tracks that host the Nationals a lot of times have a big downturn in attendance after the Nationals, and their program pretty much disappeared. And so it's good to see it back.
Yeah. Some of those programs are I think anyway, primed for a brushless motor.
Yes.
In that, it's a few bucks more initially, but there's tons of guys that will go into the shop and buy a dozen Hawk 7s, and throw 11 of them away and keep one. So the consistency of those little brushless motors is great.
I think you're going to get a lot of pushback. First of all, I totally agree with you, but I think from the general racers in general, you're going to get a lot of pushback. But I think once they figure it out and realize what's happening and how good it actually is, and cheaper in the long run and more competitive, I think they'll adapt to it. But I think there's going to be an initial pushback.
Yep.
I wonder if any flexi car manufacturers are going to build a chassis ready to run with a brushless motor.
Well, they're going to certainly build the chassis that will accept a bolt-in brushless motor. Mazzetti is busy with one, and so is JK.
Yeah, Mazzetti's doing this. I was trying to get Chris to tell us about the Mazzetti.
Okay. Well, look in the next couple of weeks. Look for Revolver.
Yeah, there's already a picture of the rag that covers the chassis on Facebook. So
yeah,
So it's going to shoot down the competition.
You
Well,
know, and,
you know, we've-
and to just bend up a flexi center section with a couple of different holes in it for a brushless motor will be, that's cheap and cheerful. So
I did see too that RGO has a inline motor bracket for brushless now for theoretically for a retro car.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something I haven't thought about trying yet. I'm going to certainly try that at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris, I totally agree. But I think there's, like I said, I think there's going to be an initial pushback, but I think in the long run, it'll be very, very good.
Yeah, I
Until
mean,
people-
there will be. There'll be a bunch of guys with a whole bunch of motors that won't want to switch, but it works both ways. Like the guys with good motors are happy, and the guys who can only afford one or two motors at a time, and those bloody motors, those things go off song real fast. I mean, those are not, you could probably run a full season, for Christ's sake, on a brushless motor where
easy.
Those Hawk 7s go off. They're inconsistent and they go off quick.
Well, and that leads to our conversation at the track was, what's the track owner going to say? Because you got guys spending $13, $15 on a motor every other week. They don't need to do that anymore.
Right. And they're not spending
twice as many of them.
Well, and as you know, Courtney, they're not spending 13 and 15. They're spending 130 because they're buying 10 at a time.
Well, some of them,
Well,
I mean,
the club race guys, as soon as their car gets slow, they want a new motor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
And
my
they'll all be
experience
real-
of it,
They'll all be happy with even a comparatively quick brushless motor in terms of straight line speed will lower your lap times because the things are so bloody light that the cars handle so much better.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear about some car handling down under. What you got, Big Den?
I got better do. Pardon me. I better do a screen share to start with. Like pardon me, like NorCal. Oh, come on. There we go.
Not yet.
We there now?
There we are.
Yeah, okay. Like NorCal, we had 8 turn up. Unlike NorCal, I wasn't able to emulate Jim and get a couple of class wins. In fact, I had a diabolical night. In our Revo under 2 litre class, we had a new winner this week. Chris managed to pip Dave, who's been winning the class regularly. So there's the field there. A lot of or a couple of, well, Dennis, you can count them. You pulled me up last week when I didn't include an escort, but I think there's an escort in there that I can see anyway.
dear. There's
The
an
Opel
escort and a
Cadets.
BMW at the back, and
Yeah,
a couple
yeah, well,
of
we better-
it's 2 escorts actually.
Yeah, well, let's not mention the
Offense.
BMW. Let's mention the BMW too much because that was mine. So
Okay.
on to the next picture.
Yes,
Sorry.
of course.
Okay.
Ah.
Now, as the politicians say, certain information has been redacted and removed, in this case for reasons of national security, personal embarrassment, and commercial inconfidence, because I was able to, on the night, to perfect the technique of reducing just about every set of tyres I had to 0 grip. So I don't want to show anyone how I did it just now until I happen to, until I work out. I think I know why the track was clean, and whatever I cleaned the tyres with just didn't work. So I'm looking for a new tyre cleaning substance. So moving on to happier times. Oops, sorry. Moving on to happier times, we'll go to, we dropped out Group 5 this week and brought in Revo slot GT2 and a different winner, Peter, one of the old guys like me, managed to get over his Dave, the track owner, which is his son, by a lap or two. Chris was third, so he had a pretty good night, a first and a second so far. I managed to get a couple of decent brackets in this race. I don't know what I did, but the tyres, the 28 lap brackets or heats managed to be somewhere up near the sharp end, like the others were doing. But I had a poor start, obviously, with the 24. Didn't even bother putting my car on the line for the photo. I reckon I must have been one of the first people ever in slot car racing who tried more cars than what he got total laps for the race. And when Brian, the real Brian, earlier mentioned clown cars, ones that you just pull the trigger and they stay there and go sideways or nowhere, that's what my grip level was like. So anyway, Dave, a third winner for the night, and Chris completed his collection with a silver medal there, so he had one of every colour. Laps, by the time we got to this race, the scores started to come back up to the track had bedded in a bit, and we were up to reasonable scores. So pleasing thing here is it was 8 the same as last week, but 2 of the guys were different. So we've got the potential probably to have 10 racing on some of our nights. Everyone gets there at the same time. On the same day. We've got Saturday racing this week coming. And that's the end of the screen sharing bit. So I'll just quickly have a look at my sticky notes and see if there's anything else I can. Oops. No, that's so I had a bizarre night, so I'll stop the screen share.
I got it for you already.
Yeah, oh, great. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see my cursor all right. So.
Well, even though you came in last, you had fun doing it, right? Right?
And I managed to sink 3 beers on the night, so
there you go.
Drown the sorrows. May there be more sorrows, so I can have more beers.
There you go.
That's probably what we was using for grip, beer.
Yeah.
Not worked well for me. Yeah. I know that much.
Yeah, I think I might have had 3D printed tires. When you're running off a batch, could you send me some over?
All right, thanks, Big Den. Jeremy put his hand up. What you got to share or ask about or whatever? We're open floor now.
Okay, this is just Club Corner. Am I sharing over here? This is track number 11 in our club. And this one just came online, and there is my gantry I built, but he put something over the top of it. From this red lane here, it's really hard to see this corner. So that's the only thing I don't quite like. It's a very fast track. This is the first time racing it, so I just wanted to see if there were any bugs. And one of the weird things was the owner wiped everything down, but after the second race or so, it was a dust field. I don't know what happened. I think there was dust in all of the grooves that got kind of blown up and around when people raced through with wood guides. It must have thrown dust everywhere. But anyway, track number 11 is in Stanfield, Iowa. Population, I think, 40 people. So stop by. You have more people show up than live in the town, I think.
What is your overall group name?
Iowa Model Auto Racers, IMAR, IMAR. Go to imar.club on our website and contact me through there. Yeah, this is the 11th track. The 12th one is still being painted. It's in paint stage right now, so it's close. It's almost too many tracks, but good times.
That's a bunch of tracks, though. 11. Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, to be fair, 2 or 3 of those tracks are just ovals, and I don't really count ovals as a real track. Let's be honest. Nobody ever builds a road course and then goes, I need an oval now. It's always whoever has an oval goes, you know what? I need a road course now.
Yeah. All right. Looking good. And I'm sure there'll be some great racing on that in the future. And hands are popping up. So are you all done, Jeremy?
Yeah.
All righty. Mike, what you got?
Well, we had one version of Sticky Tire Follies with the Revo Slot Classics. It was particularly bad for some reason. I think I'm going back to the original tires or even the 40 short tires, surprisingly, on those things. We had a lot of balling up, not quite as bad as the first time when we were doing the 25 short tires, which was awful. but we still had our fair share of problems, and I lucked out and had a good time on that one. Barely, I did some, because the BMW that I had was so terrible. There's some problem with it and I needed work on it, but I ended up with that one anyway because my Opel was undrivable. I ended up doing some balance of performance, and it made the race really close, but it really PO'd Rat B because he had it in the bag until the last couple laps, and I beat him, and it was a miracle almost. I decreased my fuel burn rate enough that I could handle it, and it was just, I was slow. And sometimes, with the fuel loads in it, it would equalize, and it was like, hey, you're as fast as I am. How come you have such a fuel advantage? It's like, well, I'm not always that fast. And, I was close to 0.7 of a second behind him in practice and stuff like that. So that was the reason. And then we did IROC with the Maseratis. And I had 2 Maseratis that I set up, and I did a video on how I set them up a little bit, how I weighted them and that kind of stuff to get them ready. And they're actually pretty decent cars. When I first got the white one in a Sidewinder position, I didn't like them at all. I mean, they were just all over the place. But it seems like either I've improved them or the way that they're manufactured now is improved. Although the one has a slightly twisted chassis that I have to fix. But even with that, it was okay. We had a good time with it. We did 40 laps with each car, and then we would switch positions of the cars and put them in the places where they were similar to an analog setup, where the guy in front switches the car and then they put it where his car was before. So, any lead that you accrue, you can keep through. Otherwise, you're just, you're starting all over again. And that worked out really well. The third one that I had set up, the white one, was set up as a long can angle winder. And afterwards, Rat B, you got that third, said, I really like that car. And the difference was close to 0.6 of a second a lap for the angle winder as opposed to the sidewinders. Some of that is, of course, the torque of the angle winder, and some of it is the downforce. But there's only about 25 grams of downforce on that particular car. So it's not a lot, but it's still enough there that it makes a difference. And so that was kind of interesting. She had a hell of a time with all 3 of them. I don't know what the deal was last night, or Monday night, but he was just having a heck of a night. But it was a good time, and everybody had fun. And I really like the close racing when it's a nail biter, like we had with the Revo slots. That's always more fun, I think. So, and that's it. That's all.
25 grams of downforce, Michael, is a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, considering that's better than 25% of your total car weight.
Agreed. I know. I know what you're saying. It's one of the reasons the angle winds are faster.
Yep.
But on the other hand, considering when we were running magnets, some of the guys like Rat B had one that had 800 grams of downforce. And it's like, okay, it's comparatively nothing. They were really fast, but still. Anyway, it's more fun now, and since all my GT3 setups are set up as long can angle winders, all the sideways GTs, because that's the way they come, and I figured I would leave that class alone and then not run any sidewinders or inlines in that class. So it's, at least they're all equal in that regard, and they're the only class that I run and angle winders in. So it's good fun.
Good stuff. All right. And Mr. Kaya is here. What would you like to share today, David?
Okay, hi everybody. You hear me? It's okay?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about my controller and the boss news on it. It's very quick. I don't take I don't speak a lot of time. So if you remember something, thank you very much. I have made some modification on the curve. I don't know if you see. You remember the curve is directly on the screen, and it can be aggressive or very smooth. And on the smoother position, I make a new option. It's very difficult to see, but there is a P like personal. And when you press the rear button, you can adjust every step of the curve. So, for example, this is the end the curve, and it's 100%, and the first is on 0%, 0 for the brake. And for example, if you choose this step, you can adjust. I don't know. Oh, yes, we can see, and you can adjust every step of the curve.
Wow.
And make your own curve like this. So when you press the trigger, you will have exactly the curve you draft before.
Very nice.
Okay, and it was the first modification. And Henri talked about a modification I make when you have 8 banks of data. So you can have, for example, 8 different cars or 8 different lanes or 8 different drivers, and you can change the bank. I don't know if you see. Oh,
yep.
Like this, perhaps. No, it don't work, of course. But you can have 8 different banks and 8 different personal curves.
Nice.
Wow.
And the last modification I done on the controller is the brake sensitivity. When you want to brake, if you brake very fast, the controller detects that you want to brake and begin to brake before you arrive at the brake position.
Nice.
So I don't test it for the moment. I will test it tomorrow at the club, and I will give the controller to a very good driver, because I'm not sure I am able to see the difference. Because I'm not a very good driver. So it was the only modification I done on the controller, and thank you very much.
Those are fantastic modifications.
Very nice.
So send me that firmware whenever you're ready. I would definitely want to test that out.
I see that Henri is there, and Andy, no, Russell too. So of course I will make some a release for them.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Nice to hear that you're still working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was contacted via private message by a guy in the UK who was asking me for more details about it, because he had he had a very fancy controller. I forget the name of it. It was like Mad something, but it had like a
Matt Tucker.
something like it. But it had a big LCD screen and had just settings out the wazoo. And he said it was very, very expensive, but he's had to send it back in for some issue multiple times.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
So he was asking me, "Ooh, how about the SR2 and what do you think and what does it do and all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, it does all this stuff and it's a whole lot cheaper than that thing was." And I assume you're still making and selling them. So if somebody contacts you or goes to the website, they can get one.
No.
You're all sold out?
No. There is no one who want to modify. If I understand well, who wanted to modify my controller? No.
No, they want to buy one.
You want to buy one in UK?
Yeah.
In UK, yes. I have a customer in a lot of country, and yes, in UK, someone buy me 3 controllers at the same time.
Nice. Okay, I'll let him know to contact you, and I'll tell him about these new features too, because
it's a good.
I like them both. So
yes, he's a good advertiser. When I go to this moment. Sorry.
I think that's a great
digital or analog controller, Greg.
It's analog right now, but he's developing a digital system based on Davik, right?
The beginning it was for the digital, for the my own digital system. So it don't work with Oxygen or with Scalextric. It works with in digital right now with the Davik chip. Davik is a digital system who come from France. I know the creator. And I asked him to modify the software in the chip, in the car chip, to understand what my controller want to talk to him, to it. Sorry. And like this, I can drive 12 cars at the same time. Change the lane, of course, send the fuel consumption, and all I wanted to do with my own digital system. So it works with 8 cars right now. And we will make a very big test with 12 cars, with fuel consumption, with penalty when you deslot. Greg, it's okay when I say deslot to go out of the slot.
So
sorry.
The analog, does that come with all the same settings on setting the curve and everything?
Yeah, I've been using mine for analog racing. I don't have digital.
I've got a True Speed, and that you can set the curve on that, but I've never seen anything as good as that.
No, you haven't seen. There is nothing so good as that.
Exactly. All right, I'm gonna end the. Hold on, I'm gonna end the live chat, but we can still chat. So
Bye.
Bye for next week.
Yes.